Hello, this is Kev, and this is Hemp TV. Just on the solo buzz today, hopefully me and Adrian will be teaming up to have a little discussion about bits and pieces that have been occurring. And, well, hot off the press, albeit from last Friday, I received a update in regards to my public interest disclosure complaint against the FSA's handling of novel foods. Now, I think it's to be expected, isn't it? Basically, I have been told that there will be a well, an extra month needed to investigate this complaint, and well, let's just go through it. So, dear Kevin, I am writing with a further update on progress with your complaint. First, I should say that I will need to extend the reply by deadline by a further month to the end of April. But I am hoping that this will be the last extension, but I will update you in due course. Okay, now I was supposed to have had an update before getting this statement of an extension of sorts, because I mean it is a statement. He needs another month. I can't grumble so much. So basically, it's waiting another month. But a lot's happened since the last statement of like there being an extension. Quite a lot. I say quite a lot. We've had products validated in questionable circumstances as well. Not so much the products that have been validated, you know, from those companies, fair play. But there's just a confusion because there was supposed to be no products validated until next year. But then within 1 week, and we are talking literally the end of January to the beginning of February this year, that all changed. Yeah, and it worries me. Then, of course, Deloitte, that pile of joy. At the end of the day, the FSA announced to the industry, if you can call a solitary LinkedIn post an announcement, that Deloitte had won the contract to independently review novel food. It was on the 14th of February. You know, it's to independently review novel foods. However, Deloitte have connections to GW Jazz. There's ties to the acquisition of GW Jazz. You know, and beyond there, you've got to kind of question their intent. You know, could be easily argued that they are not independent, and as such wouldn't be able to independently review novel foods regulations when they have clients with blatant interests for those regulations to be rewritten. So, yeah, will we see anything coming up? Well, we have heard from the FSA that there will potentially be validated products by the end of this year. Sorry, authorised products by the end of this year, if not the beginning of next, because we're due an update from the Home Office in regards to controlled cannabinoid levels. That no doubt will come with testing requirements to ensure that those levels are low and kept. So that'll be interesting to see how that affects those with broad and full spectrum applications. Some of which, certainly with the broad spectrum products, have just had their products validated. Hopefully there's going to be no craziness to come from that, but equally, this is the novel foods process. So we got that. Certainly we'll probably have the fallout from the Fera lab contract, because that was concluded the day I got this response, funny enough, the 31st of March, to test 100 products that were already on the FSA's public list. It's almost like they don't trust us, eh? Well, I say us, I'm got any products on there. But certainly that, and well, how long will it take for the FSA to dissect the report from Deloitte? You know, because strangely, forgive me, like but I believe I could well be wrong, but I know others do as well, that there is the potential for that report to have been written before anyone won a contract. Like I said, believing is one thing. I have no proof. I could be completely wrong, but it just seemed a little bit weird that there was no announcement to the industry. And of course, according to the head of Novel Foods, there were others there, and out of, I think he said 8 applied for that tender. So that's 7 that might not have direct links to GW Pharmaceuticals or British Sugar or British Associated Foods, anything like that. So we'll see. Now, moving on. In March, I brought some additional resource into the process given the volume of the material involved, and this has helped me, helped immensely, but it is still nevertheless a significant piece of work. Yeah, it is. It is a 13-page document, is it not? I did have it up at one point, but yeah, not possibly 19. But I do know the vast majority of those points reside within the monopolies market section, and certainly there is a lot to look at, because it's not just GW Pharmaceuticals named. There's also undeclared interests at the Centre of Toxicity meetings that are named. There's also a mention of a trade association who's actually a members club, claiming to be a trade association, who seem to have the FSA's ear within 5 minutes of them forming. So there's a lot of points in there to go through, no doubt, and I certainly look forward to seeing what comes from it. I mean, yeah, 130220, well, I think the FSA have broken that now. In all honesty, I think it should be ditched. And in fact, JM Wholesale getting their products removed, right, despite the fact that there's companies with products named that have gotten validated, they should be dealt with first, surely, instead of like going through those awaiting evidence. Why are you not? I'd say you, I just feel it's bad play. At the end of the day, I mean, rules are rules, and if you break the rules, you break the rules, and if you get caught, then you're caught. But equally, someone's being caught despite the fact that everyone else knows that people are being caught, and the people who are supposed to do something about it are too busy focusing on other people and not the high-class celebrity validated products, companies. You know what I mean? I just feel, yeah. So anyway, moving on. I appreciate that you will find this news frustrating, but both you and I need this process to be thorough. So I really appreciate your patience. Now, I don't know. I wouldn't say this is high profile, is it? I mean, I will start now sending these bits and pieces to a couple of MPs that I've been talking to. I think if there is any delays beyond this point, then maybe I should go through appropriate channels. And in fact, I have already talked to the politician, or the parliamentary and healthcare ombudsman, because far be it for me to be cynical, but I wonder if these complaints, these delays, delays, are genuine. But resource, that is that's something that I've got to draw back to, because there's a few people mentioned in this. All right. So is it an FSA resource, or is it from another authority, or you know, regulatory authority or government agency? I mean, you know, MHRA have mentioned, Home Office have mentioned, I think VMD are mentioned as well, in all honesty. Is it external help, GW, solicitors, whatnot? I wonder if that needs to be specified, because it's a loose term. How come the resource is there now, or what's changed? Why wasn't it there before? That's something that I kind of, yeah, I think there just needs to be clarification on that. So when I finish this video, post it, and then send it to the investigating officer, I will be asking that, as well as a couple of other questions. Now, this is the part I like. All right. I have also decided to add to the complaint the issue you wrote to me about on 02/02/2023, and the complaint response will catch this too. Okay, so this is as a result of me finding myself on the ACI webinar, where within the space of a week we went from no products being validated until next year to products being validated this year. I thought that was quite intriguing, and I just thought, wow, how are things working there? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, Paul Tossell, he always seems to be on an ACI webinar. Now, I'm not suggesting anything untowards there, but he's always there, and of course he gets to kind of know and be a little bit, like, you know, at ease with the people that he's working with. Now, again, I'm not saying anything, but Paul Tossell must have said something to Steve Moore to indicate that products would be indicated, you know, validated within a month of that time, which is pretty much about it. But not anyone else. I don't know. Yeah. But there were other bits and pieces on there that kind of raise further questions in regards to the relations between the FSA and the ACI, as well as the ACI and Buckinghamshire and Surrey trading standards. So I pulled a few points in on that, and one of the other things was, two things, yeah, new to market products, because we seem to be working by two different guidelines, and I believe that needs to be considered in this complaint. In fact, I believe that is why some companies have got validated products. They are literally working by guidance that was released on January of 2022. The benefits, no, that wasn't the benefits of Brexit, sorry, wrong document. I'll put a link to the one I'm on about, but basically it's from the Business, Energy and Industries Study Government Agency, BEIS, and yeah, they kind of define what is a new to market product, even though we weren't supposed to be having any redefinition of that kind of product. Like, for example, in EU guidance, your product is your product when it's on the shelves in some format. It could be in a competition, it could be online or whatnot. That is where your product starts. In the new definition, I can provide you with an invoice. You pay that, and well, in all honesty, your product might not get to you for 3-5 years, which is interesting, and certainly kind of raises questions over invoices or kind of availability. I mean, I'll give you an indicator. Canarray, they were holding a promotion, right? Just at the point of the 13/02/20 deadline. Problem is that I saw a post literally on that day that said, that had an interested party saying, "Oh, is there any news on the products yet? Like, I haven't had mine yet." To which a Canarray Facebook monitoring person said, "No, we're dealing with that. We hope to have it rectified soon." So was it there? I mean, it's like pre-orders. Yeah, it seems to work in some format, but not in the rules that we were supposed to have been following. The EU rules, to which there is actually documents that say that these definitions won't change. Only then we left the EU and they did. So yes, that and what was the other thing? Yeah. When spidey senses going off, like, someone says something and it's like, ooh, then they say something more and it's like, ah, and then they just one line and it's like, ooh. I had that on that ACI webinar, and it got me. All right. So basically, the toxicology expert, Dr. Paul Duffy, said, so yeah, basically what happened, obviously, like, I'm not doing an impression of him, and it's not word for word, but it is basically along the lines of, when novel food started, we approached, and by we I mean the ACI, the FSA to ask if we could use GW lab reports in our application. The FSA said no, so the ACI went back and they basically said, well, can we use GW Epidiolex literature? The FSC said no. So they went off, did their labs, and that didn't all matter, because when the lab reports came back, they were effectively mirroring GW products, or lab reports. And it's that mirroring. See, I wasn't quoting him directly, but he said mirrored, and it's like, well, that's awfully convenient, don't you think? Thing is, I asked a question on the back of that, and I said, why aren't we seeing toxicology data coming back that more reflects that of the suggestions and data that came from the World Health Organization in February 2019, as opposed to GW lab reports, 70 milligram, an RDA territory, Paul Tossell, Novel Foods, replied through the chat, and he said that's because those lab reports are for pharmaceutical products. This is for food. But 16 lab reports, well, that's a pharmaceutical grade isolate. That's, it's put into medicines. They're not food. They're medicines. They're not food. So how are we getting clamped down on with 16 lab reports? I don't know, and certainly that just doesn't make sense. Like, how do you get lab reports for foods? Because does that include slicing rats open and then examining their livers? Throws me, but at the end of the day, it just kind of paints an obscure picture, isn't it? You know, how can these lab reports reflect foods when, in fact, their original source and intention was for medicines? Yeah. So that is that. Now, I've got to be honest. He does say that he's accepted further evidence, which means I am now going to submit this Article 4 determination that has the FSA named in it. I think this is important information that I stumbled across, like, you know, and it happened because there was a secret meeting in 2018, October specifically, where the FSA approached the EU to get cannabinoids defined as novel. Now, what's interesting is that the then head of novel foods had been replaced, like, or not reassigned, from her position in September. So the Home Office and GW approached the FSA when there was no head of novel foods to approach the EU to get cannabinoids defined as novel. How do I know this? Well, look at the context of the document in itself, right? First of all, you're going to notice that there's two big redacted areas. First one is 37 characters long, all right? Now, what do we know about competitors to this industry? And what do we know in regards to who they may or may not have had a 20 plus year strong working relationship with? 37 characters, which is interesting because UK Home Office and GW Pharmaceuticals spaces included is 37 characters. So the FSA already know that a pharmaceutical company has tried to influence the competitor to them, even though it's in a separate industry, a food supplemental consumer product industry. Now, is there competition stuff there straight away? I don't know. But how wrong could I be? And if I'm not wrong, why the Home Office on this document? And why was it presented to the FSA after the head of novel foods was reassigned and when the UK had no head of novel foods? Why didn't the FSA, sorry, the Home Office or GW wait until a new head of novel foods had been assigned? And was this anything to do with the impending legalization of medicinal cannabis on the 1st of November 2018? Because, you know, going to the EU literally weeks before to kind of, shall we say, make a move to protect your IP. You know, that's how you would do it, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be? Like, and what's further interesting is how the products are described in this, right? So it's MCT and it's just isolate, but this is the trigger point for all of it. Like, you know, there's, you know, full broad spectrum extracts. You know, it's all basically controlled from this or the intention of, you know. So MCT with CBD isolate. Now that's interesting. What about other oils? And is extracted using ethanol as a solvent. Now, going down to that second redacted part. It's 19 characters long. Now, who, considering what we already know about the industry, could possibly be going around in 2015 to try and see what everyone's opinions on CBD isolate is? I mean, that's interesting. Now, what's also interesting is that the FSA and that head of novel food, who was reassigned 1 month before the FSA went to go and say hello to the EU, she actually defined CBD isolate more than 98% as novel. So if that's the case, why submit this at EU level, right, if the determination had already been made in UK and that had precedence? Okay, there's more to this, right? So we know more than likely who's up there. What products do they sell? Well, that's easy. Epidiolex, or if you're in the EU, Epidiolex with a Y, and that conveniently, Epidiolex/Epidiolex, is 19 characters long. So, what do we know about Epidiolex? Certainly it's made with a isolate that is above 98%, but it's made with sesame oil. So, is that misrepresentation? Not only are they going around member states and basically saying, check this out, now let's outlaw that. Well, that's a competitor product. That is not outlawing something that is, shall we say, a nuisance. Well, it is a nuisance, obviously, but this is a tactical Article 4 submission. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So we've got pharmaceutical product with a different carrier oil, and what we also know about Epidiolex is that it's CO2 extracted. So we got a mismatch in product dynamic there of which they've been talking to with member states. Now, if the FSA made that determination in 2017, this document was handed in 2018. Who had been doing the conversations? Now, that's funny because there is no document at EU level that I can find that show conversations into CBD in some format until 2020. No conversations or anything in regards to this is documented. Interesting, because it's also not date stamped. I mean, you can see when it's been awarded, but you can't see when it's been actually submitted, which is interesting because this is the only redacted document, and it's also the only document that doesn't come with a date stamp. Intriguing. But I think we can tell by its general setup that it is the Home Office and GW, and it is Epidiolex/Epidiolex, right? So this is my frustration. The Home Office should not be on there, right? That is potentially influencing an industry that is outside of its remit. Yeah, they could turn around and say, cannabinoids, but this right there, right? That's for CBD isolate, right? And isolated CBD, it's not a controlled cannabinoid. They shouldn't be messing about with that whatsoever. That is overstepping their authority. And those who might have been following me, I'm working towards a point where I believe that ultra vires is at play, and that is basically where someone, a court or a government agency or authority, has overstepped their boundary. I'm finding a lot of evidence of that to be the case, and this kind of reinforces it, because who else could be in that 37 letter area, right? And what other product could be in that 19 character area as well? Nothing, you know. And if the FSA made their distinction, of course, like I said, who's talking to who, right? Because if it's the Home Office and FSA and GW Pharmaceuticals on there, the FSA made their distinction when they did, and then they go, it doesn't make sense. But what it does do is show that an industry competitor from a different sector, you know, has basically come in and tried to clamp down on a product that it feels is a potential threat to its IP. And it shows that they're doing that with the Home Office. Of course, if this document can come redacted, I might have to see what I can do about that. So yes, I'll be sending that information in, and hopefully within the next 26 or so days, we will have a final reply to my public interest disclosure complaint. But that probably, and I feel I might, you know, for my own benefit, let alone everyone else's, I don't feel like this is going to be the end. Certainly with this document, and I say that not because it might get ignored, whatnot. I say that because the FSA kind of indicated in my meeting with them on the 10th of the 10th, 22, that if their investigation did conclude and find that certain parties or whatnot had conflicts of interest and were named, they could get sued. So they might have to say, we found something was done, well done, have a good one. But then what happens if nothing happens? If you know what I mean? Oh, we've done stuff, we've rectified it, and then I'm just sitting on the sidelines, just watching the game still getting played away. And that's where I think there's going to be a little bit of a fall down. So, yeah. But, you know, got to keep on the good fight, because at the end of the day, the good fight is to represent cannabis as a food before a medicine, because you only need a medicine if you're being starved. I mean, yeah, that's not technically true, but you know what I mean. And that is why I believe we need to fight for this industry, which I'll keep on doing. Have a good one.